just for Christian, one thing I found particularly striking of this about this intertemporal problem is, okay, you have a kind of economic model within, depending on the assumption, you get wildly different answers. And you would, I think, in kind of these decision support contexts and so on, would say there must be some reasonableness checks. There will not be a model where you just plug in assumptions and then believe the answers. But at the same time, where could reasonableness checks come from? I mean, the one thing I can think of is other decisions, whether it's capital markets or certain standard practices and so on, where you basically, well, it's a question where what information they are based on, but it's some standing practice, and you try to codify a standard practice. Say implied in the standard practice is a certain implied risk-free rate depending on the, let's say, capital market rate, and certain implied formula that reflects a practice rather than a model. And then I feel there needs to be some cross-check, but it's very hard to think about what a reasonableness check of these models would be.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much for the question too. In fact, what I presented is, the way I see it is ethical asset pricing theory. I would like to, and I'm finishing a book forthcoming with Columbia University Press on that. I would like to derive pricing rules from moral principles. And so independence axiom plus the veil of ignorance generate a Ramsey rule with the specific number for the degree of inequality aversion, that kind of thing. So you are correct. I mean, the financial markets, it's a check of whether the problem would be. Let me rephrase the way I understand your question. The problem would be if the rules that I get from this ethical approach to asset pricing would be very different from what we observe on the markets. Because if the public sector would use it, for example, the typical problem is the risk-free rate generated by this model is too large and the risk premium is too small, the risk-free rate puzzle and the equity premium puzzle. And if we implement that thing, that implies that because we use a very small risk premium in the public sector will crowd out the private sector and get to finance all the risky projects in the economy. I don't like that. So that would be a problem. Yeah, we need to. So that's, for example, why it's a good idea to add the catastrophic risk. When you add this catastrophic risk, as in Barreau, you reduce the risk-free rate and you increase the risk premium. That's quite obvious.
But you can just, but in this way you can get, in a way, any pair of numbers depending on what modeling assumptions. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sure. I get.
So I'm back. You need, in back of your mind, you have some notion of reasonableness that you don't just accept. There is certainly other information besides anything you would put in your model. Yep. But where can it come from? That's in this case hard to see. Many other cases you have more understanding.
You know what? The only thing I do here, I just try to explain the public decision maker, the politicians, the relationship between their beliefs and their social preference and the day-to-day practice of evaluating projects. The numbers that I put here is just for illustration. I'm not legitimate neither to determine the gamma and neither to estimate the collective beliefs about the distant future, whether we should add into the beliefs parametric uncertainties on the trend, on the volatility, parametric uncertainty on the probability of catastrophes. I mean, that's, at the end of the day, that's not my job. That will be the job of the social planner. And there is a literature in economics, growth theory, endogenous growth theory. And I'm sorry, I'm an economist, but I don't trust these models to help me model what should be the quote-unquote rational beliefs about what will happen in 200 years from now on this planet. It's a deep uncertainty. I mean, yeah, I think we could phrase.
So if I could just squeeze in a sentence here, I think in continuation of Klaus's comments and questions, in order to actually prioritize different policy options, you do need to pick numbers, or you can infogap those numbers, and you then don't have to actually pick those numbers. so that you pick a best guess, but you don't believe it. And that allows you to prioritize options without committing yourself to a particular value of the risk aversion or any other parameter.
Yeah, but you know what it's too complicated. The discount. No, that's. That's easy.
I think maybe you two should.
No. At the end of the day, I just
that particular discussion.
Okay.
Maybe I'll
Good.
hand over.
Fair enough.
So this is sort of a little bit of change of tack. So I think everybody in the room is sort of agreed that producing more than just one number can be illuminating. I mean, the problem is sort of understanding where the illumination leads to a decision, sort of what that path is, right? And so the thing that I know, so sort of if I can direct this first at Casey, and then because I'm sure Yakov will then. So what I'm still not quite understanding is how the robustness gets us to a decision, because it seems to me that you can look at these various policies that you have, and you're often going to be in a situation in which some of them just do very well over some range of values, and some others are going to do well over other ranges of values, and there's nothing in the theory which tells you sort of which range you should privilege in your decision making. So that in some sense they're just going to be incommensurable, these two policies, and then I don't understand what the theories, what these decision support theories do at that point.
Okay, so, if I'm understanding right, I think it's easiest for infogap and confidence-based to give an answer to that, because those hierarchies tell you which ranges to prioritize to be robust over. I think that's what the uncertainty representation is doing. It's telling you which ranges to prioritize being robust over.
To give you an idea of the political game which is behind those things. So I wrote this report in 2011. That was 6 months before the election of François Hollande in the presidency of France. We recommended, our group of 40 people in my commission, we recommended a risk premium of 3% per year. It happened that fast train line, the beta, so the number that multiply this 3% to determine by how much you need to adjust the discount rate, the beta for fast lane, I didn't know that. The beta for fast train line is around 3 and 5. So meaning the risk-adjusted discount rate for this kind of investment is 15% per year. So that killed any new improvement in the network of fast train line in France. And so what did happen is that as soon as François Hollande was elected, his Ministry of Ecology and Transportation organized a new commission with someone else. And those guys said, okay, if we use this 0.5 sigma square, gamma squared, sigma squared, we get 0.1% for the risk premium, not the Gollier 3%. Let us use that, and boom, 10 new lines for the fast train industry in France. So that's the kind of, so anything complex and difficult, so anything like, a model where you cannot see easily the link between the assumption you make and the outcome you get, open the door to lobbies. We need to be very clear on that. Okay, as soon as you get non-transparent process from that, you will very quickly go nowhere.
But if I can address the question that was asked here, when you're comparing two different policies, you need to compare them with respect to the same infogap model of uncertainty. Or at least, and it's actually more general than that, the horizons of uncertainty. It's getting a little bit technical, but the horizons of uncertainty have to be comparable. So the policy A might be uncertain to something and policy B uncertain to something else, but their horizons of uncertainty need to be comparable. And so that then their robustnesses are comparable. And your robust prioritization is then for satisficing your performance requirements, which of your policies can tolerate more uncertainty? each in its own domain of uncertainties, if it's uncertain with respect to different things, but those uncertainties are comparable, and so the robustnesses are comparable. If policy A has robustness of 200% and policy B has robustness of 50%, 200 is bigger than 50, and so that's my prioritization. There's no ambiguity there, or whichever word you wish to use. No, that's
It doesn't seem like we've answered the question. But
Probably just misunderstanding something.
Yeah, there are technicalities there, but...
So as I understood the way the sort of nesting works in the info gap theory is what that nesting is representing is sort of distance away from a reference model, right? So I mean, just suppose there's only one parameter at play here, so we're just varying that parameter, and in the background we've got this sort of satisficing idea, and we're looking at where, you know, for what sort of how many levels out you can go on this thing,
Right.
your policy is still meeting, you know, still satisficing, right? So it seems to me that you can, there's lots of sort of different ways in which you can vary that parameter. I mean, you could just sort of take it down, and then some policies are going to be...
Excuse me, this is a technical question. The issue is, do you have this? Yes. It's a technical question. The definition of the robustness is very precise. It's asking, and I'm going to say it in English, not in math, but it's asking, what is the greatest horizon of uncertainty with respect to the infogap model you've defined, up to which all realizations satisfy your requirement? And that's unambiguous and entirely comparable between two different policies if they're using the same horizons of uncertainty. So, you know, we should probably work through an example together, and you'll see it very clearly.
We are running out of time. Do we have any final questions, or shall we just leave it to the speakers? Yep.
Just a short question to Christian regarding your disappointment with KMM when integrating ambiguity aversion within your calculations. What disappoints you?
What
disappoints you?
With the KMM?
Oh, well, the...
KMM. So, sorry.
Oh, no, I mean... yeah, I believe that real people can be can have difficulty to compound probabilities, and so I've been written papers on what's the consequence of this inability to compound probabilities using different models of ambiguity aversion to determine what's their optimal portfolio given this this difficulty. Okay. At the collective level, the social planner, I think Mark made a similar point yesterday. At the collective level, we shouldn't be sensitive to this difficulty of compounding probabilities. I think the state should try to do the best to reduce uncertainties and get to a unified probability distribution that combine the natural uncertainty and the uncertainty coming from disagreement. Yeah. But again, I agree that we should also perform sensitivity analysis. If we recognize that the PDF is not that one, but this one, what would be the consequence on the discount rate, on the term structure of the discount rate, on the risk premium, and try to see what's the importance of the degree of ambiguity, on the consequence of that on our decision.
Infographic, I mean, is that?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll have the last question. A question to Christian also, especially you're not going to be tomorrow, I'm afraid, because you're going to the cold world out there to save the world, and that's wonderful. He's our representative. On a spectrum of, say, Google Maps or Waze, when you put your problem and you get the correct answer, to the question of here's my decision, my intuitive decision, come up with the model that justifies it. Where do you find your work with the French government? I mean, sort of a sociological question. To what extent how is this dialogue taking place? Do you feel that they're waiting to hear your answer and they just perform it, or that it's back and forth, or just asking, try to come up with the simplest model that would somehow justify the decision we anyway want to make?
Okay, so So the system, the way in France we negotiate the discount rate, it takes place every 4 or 5 years. And so the Prime Minister asked one service, is called, used to be called the Commissariat Général au Plan, now France Stratégie, to gather a commission. And typically this commission invite people from the industry, people from the different ministry, in particular the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of. So all the ministries and the private sector, they want a very small discount rate, and the Ministry of Finance want a very large discount rate. They are not able to agree, and they have no idea what kind of argument they should promote to get to their preference number. And so the few people from academics that are invited there have some power to provide the good arguments for that or this number. And so we have, we have been able to do something. I mean, my report was implemented for 6 months. Well, that was not too bad.